So, please introduce yourselves and then we'll go from there.
Hello everybody, I'm Juha Huhtakallio. I'm the CEO of Hisam, and then I'm also building game education for Finland's biggest UAS Metropolia.
Hi, my name is Arja Martikainen. I've been working in gaming since 2004. I joined a small company called Sumea that became Digital Chocolate, and DC delivered a lot of people to gaming industry. For the past three years, I've been running a games recruitment service called Games Jobs Finland at Parana IT.
Hi everybody, my name is Kim Suarez. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Kukori Mobile Entertainment, a small Finnish mobile developer. We are located 90 minutes ride east from Helsinki, and we employ currently 11 people. So I'm going to give the Indies view on this panel.
Right, so I've got lots of questions, but if anyone's got a question at any point, please feel free to put your hand up and we'll go over to you. So, just to kind of start us off, what's your process from first advertising for applicants to interviewing them through to actually recruiting them? Can you give us kind of an overview of what you guys do?
Can we start?
Well, okay. If I start, we might touch this subject later on as well, but as I said, we are outside of Helsinki, which is kind of like the hotbed and hub for mobile games, not just in Europe, but especially like in Finland, of course. We're a small country. So being outside of Helsinki means that we have to rely on personal connections quite a lot when we want to hire as a small indie developer, because usually people tend to gravitate to the bigger towns or cities. So when we recruit people, it usually starts so that I kind of like start asking around my network of connections if someone knows someone who is looking to kind of like find a new job or change companies.
Yeah, that pretty much goes so in, especially in smaller companies, but also in capital areas. So especially senior people, they tend to change jobs through their networks. But then there's also work for me to do. So I'm helping various companies in recruitment processes. And obviously I was hiring and looking for people for my previous company, so like hundreds of them. And it's always like the tricky point for a startup is to get enough brand publicity and get to known in the also among the talents or the potential candidates. So that actually requires quite a long brand building in order to get acknowledged, and then of course some good echoes about the team and so forth. So every time you hire a new person and every time like things start to go okay, so then your possibilities to find better people that increases and gets easier every time. But it's a long road, and basically like all recruitment, that's the rolling pretty much the same process, but then there are variations. So sometimes you just go and headhunt the person. You go and you talk to someone and hey, come to us. And then sometimes it's like really delightful to see that hey, we had this open position here, and then someone really unexpected person showed up, and things are working fine. So there are so many variations. Basically, but also it's good that if the companies have also someone dedicated person who actually makes sure that everybody is there when needed, for example in the interviews and so forth. Juha.
Yeah, we do pretty much the same. That's through the networks, people we know from there, but also as working with the education, I see there the difficulty of people who've just graduated to get into the industry, and this is one thing I'm working to help people to get to internships and this kind of positions. But definitely, like it's also a question like what you're looking for exactly. If you can't find it through the networks, then you look at broader, like in the future talent or through Arja also.
And what about interview processes? What kind of things do you do with that? Do you do very hands-on interviews if you've got programmers? Do you do tests? What's the actual kind of process that you go through to work out if the candidate's the right one?
So what I've kind of learned, what I do as a standard nowadays, I mean, people can say a lot of things. They can have all kind of CVs, but I really want to see them in action. So I want to give them a real task that's part of our real job, what we're doing, and see how they perform there, because I think that's absolutely the best way to evaluate how suitable they are to it. And it also shows like how much they're committed to the thing. So if there nothing comes out, like, why bother any further?
Yeah, that's true. Like there has to be certain passion towards games. So it's kind of like playing a violin. Either you want to play it all day long, or you do not. And biggest part of this of HR's job or recruiter's job is to kind of like bounce back all the wannabes. So those that just want to hang out, but also like try to recognize those talents that actually could make a difference. And even they know that they have something and they have ideas, but they do not necessarily even have the required skill set yet. But that comes. Or how do you feel about this?
Yeah, I mean, for the actual like kind of like interview process, for example, again, we are a small company, so we hire not that many people annually, but I always take someone from that specific kind of like. For example, if we're hiring someone for art, I take our art director to me to interview the person, or if it's like programmer, then I take our lead programmer. But we are kind of like hands-on and kind of like straight to the point. I mean, maybe 30 minutes interview, and we do know after that if we are going to hire the person or not, and we usually interview them all and then like follow up within a week or two. Telling who are we going to, okay, we didn't choose you this time, but we chose someone else, but thank you for coming and all that. About the skill set, if you're graduating from school, you know the basics of the industry, I'd say, but you're not ready to actually do the actual work. So that's also one thing to consider when you are hiring people, how ready they are. I mean, if you take someone who is fresh out of school, then they are much cheaper than some veteran who has been around for 5 or 10 years. But again, it's often pays off to hire the more senior guy, even if his salary or her salary is higher, but he or she can do much more quicker than the new guys.
How difficult is it to find the staff that you need? Like, how difficult do you find it to get the right people?
It is quite hard, especially, again, it depends on the actual field of expertise. But for example, we were looking for server backend developer like a few months back, and I put on kind of like announced the job in Aria's platform, Games Jobs Finland. And I noticed that Supercell and Seriously had been looking for exact same kind of person for past 3 months and not have found one. And we put out the same job, so okay, if someone is going to apply, maybe they will apply to Supercell or Seriously first. But then again, it was like my own network that I found the guy after a few months.
Yeah, and I think that also there is the fact is that there is a certain amount of people for each company. There is the group that is especially interested in you and interested in your like product, for example. I've seen like fairly difficult cases, and we've been like thinking that, hey, where the hell do we find this person? But then you only need one. You only need one candidate that has the adequate skill set and who really wants to do what you are trying to do there. And by the way, Seriously has found the candidate. So.
Yeah, it is difficult, like to find like the perfect match, and in that sense, I kind of understand why many companies rather not hire anybody and leave the position open to wait for the right one, because having the wrong person there can, I mean, especially in a startup in the early phases, it can do lots of damage. Having the wrong person there who doesn't totally commit to it or totally doesn't understand it, it can be a hindrance. And to what Kim said about getting the new people into the company, that's one thing I'm looking into in building the game education. That's we aim to have the graduates as ready as possible for the industry, so that you could, on the best case, you just take them in and they almost already fit in the team, and it starts starts working. And one thing also to mention is like, even if you find the great graduates, then it's always the question of chemistry also, so that it works in the team and keeps on the good spirits in the team.
So some of you kind of answered this slightly, but apart from obviously the skills to do the job, what else is it you're looking for, or that you kind of would raise a red flag, as in you would look not to have in a candidate? So, you know, their character or the way they'd fit with the team. So, you know, what is it apart from actually being able to program or to draw or whatever you need?
Well, I would say that in our company you have to be kind of like independent and proactive person. We want to have as flat organization as possible. So everybody is kind of like responsible for their own like place in the development, but also they can participate and kind of like give feedback to, for example, design or whatever. But then again, we are not kind of like holding anyone's hand. So if you are working with Kukori, you have to know, okay, today I'm doing this because of the big picture is this, and we are very flexible on kind of like when you come to work at the morning and when you leave, you can, I mean, if you want, and we don't have any preset meetings or whatever, you can come like, I don't know, 10 or noon and then be at the office for 10 in the evening if you want, or if you need to kind of like take a day off. It's just like a matter of telling it beforehand and then doing the hours in later. But that kind of like, from my part, it requires quite a lot of trust towards the employees. So I tend to kind of like hire people that I think that are kind of like matching that responsibility, and that we can trust that, okay, we can let them kind of like be self-motivated and do what they need to do at any given point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, talent is maybe the first basis, and then the chemistry, but then also like, how do I say, taking the extra mile, taking the extra effort for the team and really committing and seeing that we're really getting somewhere. And sometimes when you start working with somebody and you come to the point that you would be really great at if they would commit a bit more to take us forward, and then they kind of let us down and don't really care or bother about that, and that's really like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's not the situation I'm looking for. So when you find the key people who are really into it and you see they take the extra effort and all work as a team to take it forward, it's really great in that sense.
And I'm also thinking there must be someone who is still looking for an opportunity in the games industry. There is a place for everyone, and there are nowadays a lot of choice. I think yesterday there was something like number 280 companies in Finland only, plus all the opportunities abroad. So if you cannot find it here, you go elsewhere. You try and find an opportunity somewhere else and come back. You are stronger. And then also, like for the candidates, it's good that you do not shoot like your CVs to every possible company. It's good to have some plan and think what I really want to do and what would be my level, and also like try a little bit higher sometimes, because you never know what is it there behind the job ad. There may be that, okay, no, we are looking for this senior or mid-senior now, but hey, if there is some very good junior who could also come to do this and that, so let's hire this person too. So just like be brave and try, and then call and present yourself and ask something like nice of the recruiter. That's it's a good way to present yourself and brand yourself, and that's one of the ways to find a job.
There's quite a lot of talk these days about obviously diversity and trying to ensure that your workforce is diverse. Is there anything you guys do or would like to do that that would encourage diversity within your companies?
No, I must have been one of those diversity lovers in Finland, because we used to have like 34 nationalities in my previous company, and I think I heard someone saying in another panel where I am, so that your company is a real company when you hire your first foreigner and first woman, so then you can call yourself a company. So here's diversity to you. But it's the better you feel, the more diversity you have, and the more options you see around you and how you expand your business, and you see like there may be some person who comes from some distant country, and suddenly you notice that, hey, actually we could make business there, and then you have the ambassador to send there. So I've seen these miracles happen in my past, and it's fantastic.
I guess one kind of like, well, maybe not an obstacle, but hurdle is when you are kind of like hiring your first foreign person. If you, for example, if you are, I don't know, just plain Germans in German company, or just Finnish people in Finnish company, for example. So the office culture, but not culture, but language is just Finnish. But then if you hire someone from, I don't know, Brazil or Russia, then suddenly you have to speak English. And even if all your Finnish employees can speak English, then still it's slower to kind of like exchange ideas, and there is like much more room for misunderstandings if people don't talk in their native language. So that's something that you have to take into account when you kind of like make that step from just like Finnish or German speaking company to international company who uses English, for example.
Yeah, I used to work at Digital Chocolate also, and having so much people all around was definitely a richness. And when making a game, it's really good in the sense that it reminds you always that you're not aiming just maybe for Finland, that you're making a global game, and that it kind of, you know, speaking with the people, playing the games with them, shows you in so many ways that how differently people can think about the same thing in around the world. Which, when I was a game designer there, was really good, and in that sense to take in all these different views on it.
Okay, and talk to us a little bit about graduates and kind of, you know, hiring more experienced people over, you know, less experienced people. Is there more that could or should be done to help graduates get into industry and get their skills up? I mean, particularly in small companies, it's really hard. You know, is there support that the government could give that would help you to do that?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's for a small company. It's kind of like even if you take in like unpaid trainee for, I don't know, for summer or for whatever, making their work practice. It's okay. They don't cost you anything. You don't have to pay them salary, but still they are not ready, and it can cost you actually in time of your more senior people. For example, programming intern. He or she will need guidance from your lead programmer, and that will take time from him to actually do the game development. So it's still kind of like it has a cost of tag in that way. Actually, I was kind of like pleasantly surprised about the Top Gun program for Rovio, because I mean the big companies. I've been thinking of this for a couple of years, that they should kind of like have this kind of like ice hockey farm teams where they have people growing, and then of course big companies, they can kind of like pick cream of the crop for themselves, but that would actually elevate more people to be more ready when they join other companies after school.
Yeah, definitely this is something where we can improve, and this is what I am to do, and to get the people when they're ready, as ready as possible for the companies, where we can avoid this, that it takes more time from others. And what's the other one? Okay, I'll come back to you.
Okay.
I know you have good ideas. Yeah, yes. I think that's like all these Rovio type of programs, and any company that acquires young talent, they do a big service for the industry. I think that there is still too few opportunities for the young people to do their trainings, and I'm serious about it. But the games industry has to kind of like really think actively how to onboard people, because already now in Finland there is some sort of gap visible between those that do not have any or very little experience and those that have been in the industry for a long time. And the longer the seniors stay in the industry and the longer they keep bouncing back all these newcomers, the bigger the gap will be. And there has to be like some sort of like balance between taking people, onboarding people to all levels, and growing, and because this is the only way to like grow the industry here organically also, not and then also remember to import foreign forces.
Now I remember what I had in mind. So what we've seen lately is like I think we started to see some sort of hierarchy here. So companies which are formed by students and not so long ago are much more willing to and even actually look for students to take in. So I think what's going to happen, like graduates can go there and then they can move on to another company. So kind of like in a hierarchical structure. And I'm starting to see the first signs in here. And definitely some companies which come from the student background are much more willing to take in interns. And yeah, and you can see some of them doing quite well actually already.
And I think you can also think it like the other way around. I mean, if you're like, if you're looking to land a job in a game company, you're like, I don't know, graduating from school in a few years. If you are like graduating from university with like masters in I don't know, IT, technology, whatever, but don't have any practical experience, as opposed to someone graduating from college, but he or she has been doing like games on as a hobby for a few years, you have something to show in your portfolio. It still goes in games that the experience and where you have been and what you have done is more valued than kind of like what kind of like grades you had in whatever school you were in. The practice counts much more.
And then I had another idea in mind. So like also like I see many companies that are struggling with finding people, and I've seen also like the development in the IT industry before, and they're like. For many companies, I would like to say that why do you try alone? Why don't you just go to your neighbor and say that, hey, let's put our companies together and try merge these two companies and go forward together? Why to struggle trying to fish in the same pond where, like, at the moment the resources are not, there are not enough resources at the moment.
One comment about the the graduates, like, yeah, I know the numbers are, well, they're numbers and paper, so that's why when they graduate, we have a major now in the game education there. We plan to have them at least four done games when they graduate, which they can show. And we tell them when they go that when you go to a job interview, make sure your game works in the job interview.
So, particularly as a smaller studio, but in general, what do you feel about contracting people rather than actually employing them? I mean, are all your staff actually employed?
Yeah, all our staff is employed, and yeah, earlier this year when we were kind of like short one or two programmers, we also kind of like looked into contracting someone from companies around Helsinki, for example. But then again, I mean, on average, it would cost you 10,000, 12,000 euros per month to kind of like outsource or hire a developer from some company who kind of like agency company. And as opposed, on average, I'd say like with all the additional costs, it would like roughly it would be 5,000 to 6,000 if you employ someone. So it's much more expensive, and they don't usually. Well, if you're in Helsinki, then they might be like on-site as well. But again, if you are in the provinces, then they are off-site all the time, and that's not really optimal. So contracting someone can be a viable option if you need someone for a short time, like 2-3 months maybe. Or if you're a big company, I know that Rovio, for example, in my understanding, uses that kind of like deals quite often, but it's much more difficult for small companies.
Yeah, I agree on that. Like, if it's a short-term thing, then contracting. But then also what you see with contracting quite often is that they might not have the passion. So if you hire somebody to your company, he might have the passion and, you know...
Yeah, I'm just working here, yeah.
Yeah. So subcontracting can be, in that sense, a bit of a risk.
Yeah, and it also, it naturally, it depends like what you are contracting and what you are outsourcing, which is another thing. So you can also outsource certain functions and especially the basic level. But sometimes it doesn't hurt to get the contractor to do some trick, and then you can keep on, because also like on the other hand, it's costly to build a bigger team just for the sake of saving in contracting.
Yeah, mentioning outsourcing, of course, is different. I mean, we do outsource basically music. We have always outsourced because it doesn't kind of like make any sense to have like music guy in house for full time. We do outsource some 2D art, like the main image of the game, or kind of like some high class 3D models that we then use for animations, that sort of thing. And outsourcing art is quite easy in my understanding compared to, for example, outsourcing code.
In Digital Chocolate Time, we did outsource quite many games, and I remember one game which we outsourced to one particular country. What happened that everything they did, we redid.
And what about remote working? So, I mean, you said you're obviously very flexible with hours in your studio, but obviously everybody's based in the office. I mean, have you got any experience or thoughts on, teams that are working more and more remotely?
Yes, I mean, we are located in Kotka. Maybe half the team lives in Kouvola, which is like 60 kilometers north of Kotka. And those guys usually do one off-site day a week, or maybe two sometimes. And especially they are just maybe art guys mostly, so it's easy for them to kind of like just make assets at home and then just upload them to the project anyways. But also the programmers can do that, and yeah, I mean, it's more flexible for them and kind of like added benefit from the work environment that I think is important for offering to your people.
I think it depends on how clear the game is, the vision is, how clear it is to do. I once worked with a game where I was the designer there. I was there only one day a week, and the crew was really senior, so we managed to pull it off that way. But in general, I'd prefer always that people are on site. But then again, like, if somebody can do it somewhere else and we get the results we're looking for, then it's no problem.
Yeah, I think it depends quite a lot of the maturity of the team and how used they are to work together, how streamlined the processes are. I've been discussing even like yesterday with a couple of customers that are thinking of having shared teams between different countries, but there the point is that first you come to certain spots, and then you learn, maybe even for a year you do things together, and then you can move to another place. And then nowadays it's actually even possible to set up another entity without even having another company abroad. So there are companies that are using this type of options, for example, to reward some of the teams or some individuals who actually would like to experience, for example, living abroad. So if someone is interested in this type of model, so come to talk to me.
Is there any questions from anyone in the audience? No? Okay. How did you learn to interview people effectively? I mean, I've been employing people for quite a long time, and I've never had any kind of professional training, and it's always been a challenge, and it's always something I think I should really go and get some training about this. So what do you guys do, and what would your advice be?
I look at them in the eye and I ask, do you really want to do this? But it's like, when you have been doing it for such a long time, it's like, for example, I pretty much understand within the first 15 minutes that is this person capable or not, and does this CV match to the person, and so. And then another thing that I always need to work with myself is that if I really like some candidate, so I really need to try to get back a little bit and try to think a little bit how do you say, objectively what the person can do. So not to like the candidate too much, but kind of try to get back to the reasoning why this person. Yeah.
Yeah, that was probably one of the first mistakes I did. I mean, somebody seemed really nice and really good and good guy, but I forgot to think about like what they really can do and do they really want this. And I think those are like if you think of the question wise, like pretty much that question, like yeah.
I'm afraid we don't have that scientific process. I think it's more like intuition and some like bullet points that okay, we want to ask this and this and this if it's art person, or this and this if it's for programming position. But yeah, kind of like, and chemistry is it means a lot as well, because again it's kind of like very flat organization, free environment. So you have to kind of like make a guess that will this person fit into the rest of the team. But as an indie also, just kind of like a bit unrelated, but you have to be kind of like, you can't just go around hiring people or your friends or your mates from the same school, because one of the ways you can easily kill yourself as an indie is to kind of like over recruit people, because then salaries are running all the time and you may not have at least any revenue yet. So kind of like when you're first starting out, be kind of like very kind of like strict when you recruit and who you recruit, but also you have to know when you absolutely need someone to fill some position and then do that.
Yeah, I think that when you have known someone for a really long time and when you found a company, so then you have a gut feeling that okay, we can work together. But later on, it's kind of like each hiring is kind of like making a business plan. That what is the purpose? Why do we need this person? And what the person can bring? And then eventually, in the best case, you are also like very good friends. But you can also like work with many different types of people, and there has to be some variety in the team and so forth. Yeah. And then also like some companies use these psychological tests and such. I, for example, ran into a supervisor who wanted people have minimum 120 QA 120 and the old guys they said that they are probably I would have like in these new circumstances I would have never been qualified to this team. No, well, there were very brilliant people there and they did good job, but I've seen that you can also do the trick with a little bit less IQ. So there are many ways, yeah, and also like it's good to set up some process and do certain things the same way, and not to invent the wheel every time, and also like keep in touch with the candidates and get them informed, because also like how you treat people, how you reserve them, how you communicate with them, that's equally important to your own company and to your own brand. There's my question.
Oh, is there a question? Oh, can we get the mic over here, please?
Hello. Okay, I'm a new IGDA coordinator here in Helsinki, and this is what you talked earlier about. There's kind of gap forming between the junior and senior positions and like trainee positions. There's not much trainee and junior positions here, and I understand the problem how costly a trainee can be. But how could we make it easier for the companies, more interesting for the companies to consider having trainees and juniors these days? Do you have any ideas right now?
Oh, there's plenty of stuff we're doing at Metropolis. So one of the things we have like an actual game studio there which works on actual projects. So once they graduate, they've worked already on games in some way, and to integrate this as much as possible. But in general, like as much as projects work they can do, and running these in the way that's game companies do. And the other thing is like we need to ask and listen what the industry is looking for, and identify what are the problems, like what is the things that takes the time when training the juniors. But the goal is like when they graduate and if they move to a game company, the gap would be like basically non-existing, yeah, if possible. I
think it's really hard question, I mean, to answer. but maybe one thing is that to add more kind of like projects work for the students, because let's say it's like 4-year school, but if they would do like at least 1 year or even like just 2 years, like half kind of like theory and studying and half like actually making projects, then they would already have 2 years experience when they graduate, and that's usually very, very valuable.
That's actually what we do, and I think we have even more project work now. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's Finnish education system has become better in this sense that they let people out with better skill sets and actual portfolio. But then, of course, like everybody is, every student and every candidate has to do the footwork to really go there and present themselves and not to be shy. So you have to be active too.
One funny thing related to this is that there's a problem actually for the school if they're good early, because then they get hired before they graduate. Yeah. And that's a really downside for the schools, because schools get paid by the graduates.
But for a company point of view, that's good, because then you get the person that you want, and then, yeah.
But then the answer is that when you get the person, you take it first for internship, and then they can do the thesis, and then when they graduate, then they come for full time. And then it actually minimizes the risk also for the company, because during the internship they can already get pay, but then again, like if it doesn't work, then it can still be, rethought.
Yeah, actually, I can add, in the UK, there's been a couple of things. They were, until very recently, if you hired a graduate, the government would pay 50% of their salary for a year, which increased the number of graduates in small companies massively, particularly in small studios. And that worked pretty well. And they're also now enforcing internships in the UK. So, big companies have to pay into the pot, and then all the companies get to use that. We'll see how that works. But yeah, there's quite a lot of things that can be done. Any other questions? Okay, I'll carry on. Where was I? Have you ever got it wrong? Have you ever hired someone you shouldn't have hired? And if so, what happened? And how did you deal with it?
I have hired, there's 11 of us and I'm one, so I have hired 10 people, so I have got 10 out of 10 right so far.
What
Easy
happened
answer.
with a startup, as when we founded the startup, like what sometimes happens, like friends are not equal as business partners always. So we had one of that kind of case, but after that, it's been brilliant.
Yeah, and I think that's what do you consider a failure in recruitment? Sometimes I see those fast trackers, people that go very quickly. They go up in the organization, or they bring a special skill, and we even calculate in the beginning that, hey, this person probably doesn't even stay longer than a year or year and a half, but we take the risk and we ask this person to like teach us, for example, and then they are ready to move forward. But then sometimes there is like someone who joined the company for wrong reasons, or someone who was hired for the wrong reasons. So sometimes companies may have like expectations that do not eventually meet. So then it's kind of like matter of the supervisor and the team lead to look in the mirror and say that like very too hasty, very forced to do this decision. Why didn't we wait? And if there's any doubt, it's good to sleep over it and think about it next day again. So,
if you're trying to reach people outside of your network, so obviously you've talked a lot about relying on network, which makes sense. If you want to or need to reach out of that, what other channels do you use? I mean, do you go to recruiters? Do you do paid advertising? Do you just use social networks? What sort of ways, and also particularly not just for experienced people, but also for graduates, how do you, if you did want to hire those people, how do you find them?
Graduates, usually you get tons of email from people all around Finland, but also from Europe and other countries. But then again, if you can't find person right away from your own network, I will use Aria service multiple times, also GameStop's Direct, and then in Finland, there's really good Facebook group, Play Finland, where people also announce if they're looking for a job, and game companies announce if they have open positions. So that's really like good social media side of things for that. But yeah, so far we haven't used any agencies. It's kind of like those work also inside Finland, but again, for a small indie company, it's like 10,000, 15,000 euro fee, and yeah, usually those are the same persons anyway. That, especially in Finland, everybody knows everybody, so you can target those persons and ask them directly, anyways.
I just tend to grow my network, so I have a lot of also like students in my network, and pretty much everybody with whom I've been working during the past 12 years. So that's my source pretty much, and then yeah.
Yeah, social networks. Yeah, that can work. And I once went to this Helsinki, Yritys Helsinki Newco events over here, which had events called Find Business Partners or something, and actually met somebody who used to work at Rovio, and we've been working together ever since. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Any questions from the audience? I've got one more, but we've got time if anyone... Okay, right, my last question then. If you're a startup thinking about hiring your first people, what one tip would you give them?
First, hire, like if you're just a single person looking for the partner, then yeah, look for a partner who can kind of like complement what you're doing. Many companies have started with like just two guys, one programmer, one artist, and in that point, the most important thing is that you have to get along.
Yeah, like especially in the beginning, it's more crucial, and as the minute you realize somebody isn't really the right guy there, then you have to really start working out how to continue from there, and because at some point you're both going to realize it's not going to work, and the sooner the better, and just aim to get to exactly the right guys for the thing.
And then there is also like things will evolve. So let's say that when you are starting a company and you find the first partners, and so I've seen a situation where there was like teams, like I think it was a sales team of that time, and I called it the fourth generation of sales team. So the team had changed, all of the members like 3 times. And then a fourth time came, and we had the true dream team just in place there. And then the whole business model changed, and we needed completely different types of people. So don't be afraid of mistakes, and don't be afraid if somebody has to leave, or if you do not feel like that you have motivation to do it, you may be also the one that has to leave.
And actually, when forming the team, I actually got everybody I wanted to the team. But if that wouldn't have happened, then that would have forced me to think like, am I doing the right thing? But as I got the people I was looking to get to work with me, then I knew I'm onto something, and yeah.
Okay. No other questions? Okay, I think we'll wrap up there then. Thank you very much.
Yeah.